So, hello. Nice to see everybody here today. My name's Clif. I'm a vegan animal rights activist and advocate, and a lot of you know me, which makes this even worse. I feel the pressure. But you might have seen me on the streets. I do activism around Belfast city centre. So what I'm doing at the minute is me and my friend go out with a sign and we just ask people a question like what is speciesism, or what animal died today because of your meal. And all we're doing is trying to invite people into a conversation so that we can lay a few dots for them, and they might make a journey to veganism at some point. I'm also a trained speaker for animal aid, which means I can go into schools and universities and primary schools and talk to children. So if any of you know school teachers that might be open to a vegan message in a school, just hook up with animal aid online, and there's a few people around Northern Ireland who are trained to do that. So I think that's where it's at in the schools and with the children. That's where we're going to make the most advances. So my journey to veganism has been a long one. Like most people, I didn't get it straight away. So one of my earliest memories was when I was 10 years old. I witnessed something really hideous. So we had moved as a family from the countryside into the suburbs of Ballymena. And I was playing football this day at the front of my house with my mate, as we did every single day. And suddenly out of the corner of my eye I seen a cow running, and immediately behind it were two guys dressed top to toe in white, splattered in blood, with sticks. And when they caught up with the cow, they proceeded to beat it, and they were hitting it across the head and they were hitting it around the legs, and really quite vicious. And me and my friend stood for a few seconds and then just automatically began to shout like, "Hey, stop, what are you doing? Leave it alone." Those days I said it, I don't anymore. And my dad came out and he shouted too, and it seemed to go on forever watching these guys do this to this poor cow. And then a van turned up, and the cow was off its feet by this point, and they tied chains and ropes around it and they dragged it away. And my dad, I didn't know at that age what had happened or why the cow was there, but he explained to me it had escaped from the slaughterhouse, which was just about 500 yards away. It had been standing in line to go to its death, and it had decided, no, I'm not having this, I'm going to break for freedom. And I remember crying that day, but I didn't get it because I probably ate meat for my dinner that night, even though I was an animal lover since I was a little child. Like when I was young, in our house we had cats and dogs, we had mice, gerbils, guinea pigs. So I loved all animals, and like most children I surrounded myself, like the books I read were about animals, and the films I watched and the cartoons I watched on TV were about animals, and my pajamas had animals on them. So I loved all animals and I would never have hurt one, but yet what happened that day was my fault because I was consuming the product and creating the demand. What's happened? No sound. No sound. That power's off. I'll just go without it. Can you hear me okay? Yeah? That was good. So what happened that day was my fault because I was paying for the product. So I'm the consumer, I created the demand, so those guys were doing something to an animal that I would have never done, but it was my fault that it happened. And the reason is because I had been disconnected. I was almost brought up in like a matrix that I couldn't even see, where I was taught to do things that were completely unnecessary to animals. And it comes at you from all angles from an early age. So one of the first things you're taught in school is about the benign nature of livestock farming. So if you think back to when you're in primary school, like P1 and P2, the books you would have read, you can all imagine the image you saw. It's a farmer with rosy cheeks and dungarees, and behind him there's a tractor and a farmhouse, and he's got a dog beside him, and there's one chicken and one pig and one horse and one cow and one sheep. And there's never any mention of why those animals are there or what's going to happen to them in a few weeks' time when they go to a slaughterhouse. And if we told children what happened to those animals, it would be very traumatic for them, and probably no one would eat animals at all. So that's the first part of the lie, is that livestock farming is benign, that farmers look after the countryside, they look after wildlife, and they care for their animals. And the second part of the lie meshes in with that, and it's nutrition. And you're taught that you need to eat these products to survive. So when you're young, you're taught, your parents will tell you need to eat meat to grow up and be strong and have muscles. You need to consume dairy milk for calcium so you have strong bones. And I remember when I first said to my dad, I'm not eating animals anymore, I'm not eating meat, he said to me, well, if you don't eat meat, you'll not grow up to have hairs in your chest. Well, thankfully I didn't listen to him, and I don't have a hairy chest and I don't want one. But it's almost that toxic masculinity thing that you're not a real man if you don't eat meat. And that fuses with the advertising that we all see when we're young. So the best example, we see TV programs, magazines, newspapers, billboards all around us, all selling us happy meals, happy animals singing and dancing their way to the slaughterhouse. The number one example of that is McDonald's, who sell us a product that is steeped in absolute cruelty and oppression and sell it to us as a happy meal. How dare they have the audacity to do that? They sell it to us as a happy meal and most people don't even question it for 1 second. And the third part of the equation is steeped in religion. So you're taught that mankind, humans, are created in the image of God, that we are the crown of all creation. We're above animals. They don't have a soul, and therefore we can do to them whatever the hell we want to do with them. Crazy. So these things mesh together. And you grow up your whole life, and should you be 10 years old or 20 years old or 50 years old, at some point you'll get your way out of the matrix, I hope, with a red pill, just like the film. And that red pill might be a film like The Game Changers or Seaspiracy or Cowspiracy on Netflix, or it may be a vegan influencer online like Joey Carbstrong, or it may be footage from a Meet the Victims to some of the people here today, or it could be meeting a vegan activist in the street who has a conversation with you, and suddenly you're exposed to the truth in that moment, and then you've got to decide, am I going to support this anymore, or now I know the actual truth, I'm going to remove my support. You have a decision to make in that moment, to take a blue pill or a red pill. That's your decision. And the truth is, we'll go through the three things. The first one, the benign nature of animal agriculture and livestock farming is an absolute lie. And the one image that is burned into my brain more than any other is from 2 years ago. Some of you will remember it, where a pig farm in Kilkeel in County Armagh burned down overnight. And I woke up to the images in the morning of rubble and smouldering and smoke and all this metal and steel meshed together, yard upon yard of steel. And I thought at first, what is that? Is that the infrastructure of the building as the roof collapsed? And as I read further on, the barn that burned down was the one with the mothering sows inside. So those were things called farrowing crates. So those mother sows are kept in those crates. They are just bigger than their bodies, so they can't turn around at all. They can't walk forwards or backwards. They can stand up and they can lie down, and that's it. And beside them is a creep area for their little babies, another caged area. So the babies are allowed to feed from them for a short time before they're put in another pen. So can you imagine for a second what that barn was like? 3,000 souls lost their lives in that barn that night. 3,000. Can you imagine being trapped in a cage with your babies beside you when that barn caught fire? And the fire's creeping slower and slower and getting quicker and quicker, closer to you. And you're listening to the screams of your friends and their babies burning beside you. And you're trapped in a cage and you can't do a damn thing about it. And then it's your turn to burn to death with your children beside you. It's an absolute atrocity. And you might say to me, yeah, Cliff, I get it, but that was an accident. That wasn't really supposed to happen. But think of the alternative. Those little babies, after a few days, will be taken and put into a pen of absolute filth and squalor, and they'll stand in their own feces and urine for 6 months. I've been there with people here and we've seen it with our own eyes. It is absolutely terrible, the conditions that they live in. And the first day they will ever see the sky or see the sunlight or feel the wind in their face is the day someone pulls up in a truck to take them to a gas chamber like Carrow and Cookstown or Cranswick and Ballymena, where between them in Northern Ireland they gas up to 30,000 pigs every single week. 30,000, it's not even gassing. CO2 gassing is like asphyxiation. It's like being suffocated alive, and it's terrible. We've stood outside it and listened to it, and the screams of those pigs, I swear to God, you wouldn't wish it on your worst enemy. So livestock farming is not benign. It is cruel at root. It is an absolute atrocity, and it really has to go. The second one is the nutrition side of things. Well, I'm reasonably well versed in epidemiology and nutrition. I don't have time today, I've only got 15-20 minutes, but all you need to know that a vegan plant-based diet is suitable for all stages of human life. All stages. And if you don't believe that, you can go and read the science and read the peer-reviewed science, and it all points in one direction. If you don't believe me, look to the best among us, look to the athletes. Look to one of the world's strongest man, Patrick Bavoumian. Look to Mr. Universe from a few years ago. Look to Rich Roll, one of the best endurance athletes in the world. Tennis players like Djokovic. They're maybe not vegan, but they're eating plant-based. Cyclists, Olympians, UCI boxers and fighters, all these people survive on a vegan diet and they thrive on it as well. So if they can do it, absolutely everyone here can do it as well. There's no question. That's 2 debunked. Number 3 is this notion that we're better than animals. And I can remember doing activism one day with my friend Thomas, and a guy said to me, we're better than animals, we are above them. And I said, well, why are we above them? And he said, because we're better. And Thomas looked him dead in the eye and he said, can you fly? And he thought for a second and he thought, yeah, well, you got me there. So humans, first of all, why are we putting scale and value on life? If someone values their own life, that's all I need to know. It's not up to me to decide whose life's important, whose life isn't important, or whose is less important. There shouldn't be no scale on life whatsoever. Humans think we're better because it's human bias. We're the ones making the scale, but we're not the best communicators. Whales can talk to each other over thousands of miles. We just don't understand what they're saying. We're not the fastest runners. We're not the best climbers. We're not the biggest. We're not the prettiest. We're not the strongest. So animals have value that we don't have. We just see it from a human perspective that we are more important. How selfish is that? That I value a sandwich more than someone's actual life. So all those things debunked. Unnecessary cruelty. It's not needed and therefore it needs to end. And the 4th thing I want to talk to you about is the environmental damage that's being done to this planet because of livestock farming. Like millennia of ecosystems are being destroyed because of livestock farming. And this is one I didn't get for a long time until I climbed Slemish one day a few years back. I don't know if you guys have been up Slemish. And it's this mountain in Ballymena that stands like a big pimple and the ground sweeps away beneath it. And you stand at the top and you can see for miles. On a sunny day you can see for miles in every direction. And as I stood up there I thought, look at this lovely Irish countryside. And then I realised, hang on a second, there's a problem here, because I can only see like 6 or 7 things. I can see grass and I can see stone walls, barbed wire fences, wooden fences, the odd farmhouse, and I can see cattle and I can see sheep, and everything else is gone. Another way you'll get that perspective is being up in an aeroplane. If you look down from above, it looks like a green jigsaw puzzle. And we're led to believe that's what Ireland looks like, that's the Irish countryside. Well, if I could tell you before the 19th century, Ireland was 80% forest. Today, because of animal agriculture, because we have scraped it bare to farm animals, it's less than 1%. That's the worst in Europe. So the trees are gone, the wildlife's gone, because they have no cover, no trees, and the farmers will kill anything that is a threat to their profit and money. So they've wiped out the wolves, the foxes are being hunted, the badgers are being culled. So all the wildlife is gone now to like 4% of the mammals on this planet are wildlife. The other 96% are human beings and farmed animals. And it gets worse because from chicken farming and pig farming, we have an enormous amount of phosphates and nitrates going into the soil. Then the rains come, it washes into the rivers, it kills the fish, it pollutes the oceans. They're becoming polluted hypoxic dead zones. And we're overfishing, which means the fish stocks are going down drastically. So by 2048, science tells us there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. It's an absolute disaster. So the land is being scraped bare, the wildlife's gone. Where are the trees? Where's the diversity of plants? Where are all the birds? Where are all the insects? They're all gone or going because of livestock farming. And people say to me, Clif, well, yeah, I get it, but I don't want to give up eating meat because I like eating it too much. So I'm just going to change a little bit and I'm going to buy grass-fed. Well, that's okay. That's for rich people. because poor people can't afford, and poor countries can't afford the luxury of grass-fed because of the enormous amount of land that it takes. Like sheep farming in the UK takes up 4 million hectares of land, which is double what all the infrastructure we have created together takes up. So if you take all the houses and shopping malls and airports and roads and factories and put it all together, sheep farming takes up twice as much ground and it produces 1% of the food that we eat. 1%. It's an enormously wasteful use of ground. Absolutely terrible. So people say to me, I'm going to eat grass-fed. Well, if we eat grass-fed, we're going to need 10 more planets to farm animals on. 10 planets. So we have these rich, I'm going to say rich, people who have accumulated a lot of money. They're not rich because they're poor in spirit. Assholes like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and Richard Branson building their wee spaceships and flying up into space and spending millions of pounds while people on this planet are starving. They don't even have any food. I don't think those guys are going to go out into the solar system and find 10 other planets for us to farm animals on. It's not going to happen. And another thing people say is, yeah, I don't like those factory farms, but I'm just going to buy my bacon from Joe's farm up the road. I know where it comes from. There's no food miles. Well, where do they get their food from? They get their food from South America. So we burn down the rainforest to grow soy and crops to feed animals on. And we ship it halfway around the planet to Ireland. So in Ireland last year, we imported 5 million tons of grain and soy from the Amazon to feed to animals here. That's almost 1 ton of food per person for everybody in Ireland, just so that somebody can eat a bacon sandwich. It's absolutely crazy. It's so wasteful. It's destroying the planet. It's cruel. So there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. I can't see that there's any good way to farm animals whatsoever. None. Simply no good way. So that's where we come in. We need to make change. We need to be activists because the governments are not going to help us. And rich businessmen are not going to help us, and the elites are not going to help us because all they care about is money. They don't care about people, they don't care about animals, they don't care about anything else than profit. So it's up to you and me to get out there and tell people. And if I'm telling you, you need to be an activist, a lot of people go, I don't know if I could do it. I don't know if I could stand at a vigil and see pigs going to their death, or I don't know if I could talk to people in the street, but everybody can do something. So whether it be writing Facebook posts, or writing music, or sharing information with your family and friends, or writing poetry, whatever it is, you can all do something. It's really, really critical because it's not just our future, the future of the entire planet depends on it. If we don't get out there and tell people, who else is going to do it? So I'm not going to stand idly by while our planet is being destroyed and people are abusing and killing animals for a completely unnecessary reason. I want that to stop, and I'm going to play my small part in trying to make that change. And that's what we all need to do. We all need to try and make change in the best way that we can and use your individual skills and your ideas to come together as a whole, working for good, so that we can make change in this world and we can make it a better place for all the earthlings that live on it. Thank you very much.